During the holiday, we always want to have quick and easy one-pot meals. And today, that's exactly what we're going to do. We're going to put together a harvest one-pot meal. So, stay tuned. Now, this one-pot meal is going to be a lot of fun because what we're going to do is that we're going to take the time to brown our chicken. So I'm going to add just a little bit of olive oil into the pan, about we'll say about almost a quarter cup or so of olive oil, just enough anyway to cover the bottom of the skillet. And let's get the fire on. There we go. And I'm going to put it on a medium and let that come up to temperature because we want this nice and hot. So when the chicken hits that surface, it's going to be ready to come together. Now remember, 30 minutes. Now I have my basic house seasoning, with me. So I'm going to take a teaspoon and I'm going to sprinkle our chicken. As you can see, I have it over here. I'm going to take it and sprinkle some of that basic seasoning. You know, I told you, this basic seasoning, you put it on whatever your meat is, and oh my goodness, it is always delicious. Always comes out perfect. So I've sprinkled enough. I'm going to flip those over and going to share some of that goodness from one chicken breast to another. Turn it over, and if I don't have enough, I'll put a little more on there just to make sure that it is well seasoned. Now that's our house seasoning, basic house seasoning that we're putting on this chicken. Okay, so it looks like I can actually see the ripples down here. So I'm going to get a pair of tongs and I'm going to slide this over because I was trying to cut back on the number of dishes, and absolutely that's going to be what you do as well. Now listen to this sound. See how that sizzled? That's what you want. You want that sizzle. So I'm kind of running this around the plate because I want to make sure that I pull all of that seasoning that I sprinkled onto the chicken, and I don't want to leave it in the plate. So I'm going to actually put these around the pan, and these are good sized chicken breasts. Now if you needed to feed, say, twice as many people, then you could certainly slice these breasts in half and cook them like that, and you could probably feed 6 people. So as you can see, we've got a paper plate here, and I'm going to take that, fold it up, and all of our yucky chickeny stuff is going to go away. So let me toss that aside. And we're going to let this cook. Now you're probably thinking, what makes this dish such a harvest dish? And you know, sometimes I'm a little over the top, but what really makes it a harvest dish is the fact that it's going to contain the smells and the fragrances of autumn. It's also going to contain sweet potatoes, which is a autumnal vegetable. And of course, potatoes. It's going to have 2 different kinds of potatoes. It's going to have golden raisins. It is just going to come together. It's got cumin. It has a little cinnamon. So in addition to the flavors that we have put from the house seasoning, we're also going to add additional flavors into the pan. Now let's see if our chicken is ready to turn over. Remember, if it comes off, this is a stainless steel skillet, and if it comes up without resistance, then you know it's ready to flip. Now I'm going to probably turn it back over to get more color, Let's see how it's doing. Okay, it's doing pretty good. So I'm going to I'm going to turn it over. This one is turning without resistance, so I'm going to turn it over as well. And I'm not going to add any vegetables into the pan just yet, because I do want to be able to get all of the frond or the goodness off of the bottom of this pan. So we're going to let this cook for about another 4 or 5 minutes on this side. Now, while we're waiting for that chicken to cook, I thought I'd better introduce myself to those of you who may have stopped today and you're new. I am Leona Dooley, and this is Ebony, Ivy, and Thyme, where we love to work in our kitchen. We love to have family in the kitchen. We love to prepare delicious meals and get all those good hugs and kisses from our children, our husband, and anyone else who may be passing through. But you know what? It is always a fun time in the kitchen of Ebony, Ivy, and Thyme. And I certainly invite you to be a part of the family, because after all, this is where we are building a strong family and community. And we're doing it one meal at a time. So home cooks, put your apron on and let's get to it. Now take a look and see how I turn those chicken breasts with the thicker part of the chicken toward the center, because that's the hottest part of the pan. You're also going to see that the frond is building up on the bottom of the skillet, and that's exactly what we want. Now I'm going to start to turn these over because they're browning, and I want them to get a little more brown on the other side. And all of that chicken goodness is going to be right here in our pan. And so I can just take my tongs and give a little scrape, and I'll do that as we start to add a little bit of liquid later into the pan. Now I'm going to take these breasts out for a little while. I don't think they're quite finished cooking, but I'll check them in just a bit. And what we're going to do is that I'm going to cut that heat back just a tiny bit, and we're going to start to add our aromatics. So we're going to start with onion. We've got onion, we've got peppers, and we've got some good things that are going to be going into this skillet. So I'm starting with onion. Put that onion in, and I want that onion to get happy in there. And if some of the other vegetables go in, they're going to all be mixed in together. I could certainly just pour them all in, but I kind of wanted you to see what was in there. So I've got onions, and you already see that the sweet potatoes have already jumped in. I also have some red and orange peppers that I'm adding to the skillet, along with those potatoes. Now, in addition to the sweet potatoes, which you think of sweet potatoes in the fall all the time, I'm going to add just a few of these little baby potatoes in, just to make this dish very hearty and a little bit over the top. Now I'm going to get my wooden spoon, and I'm going to start to give it a stir, because you see all the goodness on the bottom. We're going to bring that up as these vegetables start to cook. So I'm going to mix those, and we've got quite a bit of seasoning down on the bottom. So I'm going to wait a little while before I start to add in more house seasoning. I want to give these a minute because it's going to pull a lot from the bottom. So I'm going to take my spoon and just kind of give it a good zhuzh. And I'm going to go ahead now and start to add more house seasoning. Just a little sprinkle. I'm not going to even measure, just enough to just say, okay, I don't want you to be too fresh, but I want you to be delicious. Okay, so we're going to Let that simmer for just a minute. Let those vegetables simmer. Now, you know, the longest part of this whole dish is the fact that we have to add the chicken. The chicken takes the longest to cook. And, you know, of course, I dice these potatoes pretty small so that they will cook very quickly. Now, we need a little bit of liquid. So what we're going to do, I'm going to take my spoon in the center, and I'm going to push everything back. And I'm going to add in 1 can, and this is this is a 14.5-ounce can Del Monte stewed tomatoes with no salt added. I didn't put any salt in it because I didn't want it to be too salty. So we're going to put that in, and on top of these tomatoes, I'm cutting this down low because it's going to need to simmer so it can cook all the vegetables that are in there. We're not going to put the chicken back in for a little bit. And we're going to get everything stirred up. Now remember, we're bringing fall into this pan. Okay, so we've got a surprise ingredient. It was a surprise for me because I'm going to add some golden raisins to this dish. Golden raisins we're going to add into the dish. Probably a couple of tablespoons. That's about all that's going in. And you could have used like a peach salsa or a mango salsa. I didn't have that, so I just took a tablespoon of brown sugar just to give that little touch of salsa. So that's in there. And I may actually add just a little bit of the tartness of the salsa. I may add just a touch of lime if I can find a lime in my refrigerator. Add just a touch because, you know, we have to learn how to adjust. We don't go out and start running to pick up whatever a particular recipe item might be. We have to use pretty much what we have in our kitchen because number 1, gas is expensive, and number 2, food is expensive. And when I go in that grocery store and come out, I'm usually out of quite a bit of money. Okay, now I'm adding an entire can of this tomato, well, where we got the stewed tomatoes. I'm going to add in a can of water. And I'm going to let that start to come up so I can turn my heat up at this point. And what that liquid's going to do is that it's going to start to take all of the frond off of the bottom. Now I'm going to turn my handle over here so I can hold on to it. And you see it's pretty juicy, but by the time it cooks, it's going to be nice and thick and hearty. We could serve a good 4 to 5 people this particular meal. And after this comes to a boil, I'll taste it to see whether or not we need to add any more house seasoning or whatever may need to be added. Now, at this point, I want to put in a little bit of cinnamon. And I'm going to sprinkle a cinnamon. Now, the recipe calls for about a half a teaspoon. So we're going to start with about a half teaspoon of cinnamon. We don't want to get too much, but we do want that nice warm flavor. Now that was cumin that I got in first. That was the cumin. That was a half teaspoon. Now we're going to put in a little bit of cinnamon because it is also one of those fall flavors that we like. And only a half teaspoon of cinnamon. So those are in. You know, if you were a real curry person, you could certainly add in curry because curry has some of those same flavors that we're adding in. Oh, this smells. Just adding those particular flavors to it, it smells delicious. Now, I think I'm going to put some rice on the side and put that on and serve this in a bowl over rice. Over rice. That's going to be so good. Have a salad, and that's going to be dinner. Now let's get this up a little higher so we can get it to boil. All right, our mixture is boiling, so what we're going to do is that we're going to put the chicken back into this dish. I'm going to put the top on it, and then I'm going to let it simmer until all of our potatoes are nice and soft. Now, what I did was to go through, and I actually split those breasts lengthwise. And before I thought they were just a little too large. So let me get my, whoops, I'm making a mess. Let me get my tongs, and I'm going to nestle our chicken down in the liquid. And you'll see there's a lot of goodness that came off of the chicken while it was just sitting. And so I'm getting that down in there. All those pieces. Now notice, I was able to get 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. Let me move my spoon out of the way. Okay. Shake that off. And number 6, we're going to get him in as well. So all of those are going to be nestled down in there. And I'm going to make sure I get all of this goodness off of the plate. Now let me put the top on it. And we're going to let this cook until the chicken is well done and the potatoes are nice and soft. The fun part of a one-pot meal is the fact that if you fix it early, then your family can come in and just smell. When they're coming home from school or they're coming in from work, they are smelling those delicious flavors that are going on your stove. The real good thing is that you only needed one pot. So when everybody gets their food and there's nothing left, then you got one pot to clean up. And they can put the rest of the dishes into the dishwasher. So we're going to let this simmer for probably another 15 minutes or so. How quick was that? A delicious harvest one-pot meal. All right, I want you to feel like you're just jumping right into this pot. Woo! Can you smell those flavors? It is just simmering away, and that's fine. Now I'm going to take a little spoon and give it a taste, because I'm thinking it needs just a little heat. We're going to add just a taste of heat to it, I think. So let me give it a little taste. It has plenty of salt and seasoning, but it does need, now I'm not going to put a lot because we have a little one, just a little cayenne in. And if anyone wants more, they can certainly add their own, but just enough to bring that flavor up. And I'm going to kind of go through and just kind of baste that chicken, because I want this chicken to be full of those flavors. They're going to be so good. It's a warm flavor. And you know, because I diced the potatoes up small, they're going to cook very quickly. Like I said, we could have used cumin, some type of cumin, either red cumin or yellow cumin, whichever your heat factor can and spice factor can take. But I stayed with my own selection of flavors just because I knew what the family liked. So we're going to cover this up, and this is ready. So these flavors are going to have a chance to go through the dish, and they are going to be perfect by dinner time. My chicken is done.
I
Everything
didn't
is
get to
done.
come back in and do any more chit chat, but that's okay. But I did want to show you my new apron that I got, that one of my friends was nice enough to send to me, and so I'm going to show that to you and give you a little model at the end. A home cook always needs pretty aprons because it helps to keep our clothes nice and clean. So if you haven't gotten yours for Thanksgiving, then certainly check out some down in my description box. I have the Apron Diva listed down below, and she has some gorgeous aprons, so check it out. Have a blessed and wonderful evening.